Since I got you guys as guests, let's just start off with our number 3 pick on the 450s. So, Rob, you're analytical. Who is your top 3 in the 450s for 2022?
Wait. You said top 3 and then you said third. Are we going all 3 at one time?
Nope. Let's just start with the third.
Okay.
Excuse me. Let's go with the third.
Well, in number 3 this year, I'm looking at Chase Sexton, number 3. He's we know he's got raw talent. We know he's got ridiculous smooth technique. There's been a lot of turmoil in his camp over this last year. Obviously the verdict is out. Is it going to be good changes or bad changes? I know that Jay Dungy is probably one of the most level-headed mechanics, and for them not to be able to get along and for Jay to feel the need to move on, not that he went anywhere bad. I mean, he ended up landing with Plessinger, so that's not a bad thing. But I have Chase there. He's parted ways with James for, whatever reason. I mean, yes, I've listened to Jace over Gypsy Tales. We've all heard supposedly why Chase isn't there. I just find it interesting that Chase is. Go ahead.
Can you refresh me on that?
Yeah, essentially what Chase said was that James is so naturally talented, he can't explain what he does. I'm just paraphrasing what Chase said. This is no epiphany for anybody. He says that himself, Chase, is a naturally talented rider. He does things that he can't articulate. James does things that nobody can understand nor articulate. And because of that, they decide to go their separate directions.
So funny. Have I not been saying that forever? Some of the best coaches are not necessarily the best riders.
Absolutely. And then, but for there to be a new mechanic for Chase and there to be a new trainer for him and all things included, I think Chase has the ability to win. Obviously, he's got his second year here of trying to prove himself. I think the Honda 450 camp is a little bit tumultuous right now. I think you've got Roxon. He's been paid a lot of money, hasn't delivered. I know there's got to be a tremendous amount of pressure that's there. If you listen again to Chase over at Gypsy Tales, he's talking about he didn't feel like he got the attention that he deserved. I have a little bit of a problem with that. But then a lot of changes in Sexton's camp, so that's why I've got him at third. Lots of talent, lots of adjustments, and we can't forget that Jet is on a fast track to the 450 camp, and that's got to be resonating with Chase at some level. He desperately wants to be the top dog at Honda, and he may end up getting usurped by Jet. If Roxon decides to tap out, Jet moves in. Sexton could almost be like a moose can, never gets to that top rung. So we'll see.
Digressing a little bit, do the pro guys, the top guys, do they have to pay their mechanics? Is that the team? Do you guys know?
I believe it's a team, but there's an unwritten rule you're supposed to tip them out. Not everyone does.
Like bonuses, etc. ish.
Yeah.
I heard of one mechanic, I think it was Eli, who just gave his prize money, which we all know isn't that much, but all his prize money would go to the mechanic. There's my dog in the background there.
Such a cool dog.
Love that dog.
No, well, some of that price, you mean like all the purse money for winning a race or something?
Yeah, I laugh when you say all the purse money.
$1,300 for the win.
Sure.
Okay, true. But I mean, for a weekend for a mechanic, right. I would say that would be fairly decent. But the bonus structure, that's pennies if you're thinking their contracts are saying, hey, it's going to be 200, 300 grand to win a race. Then you give the mechanic
$1,000.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Chris, what do you think about Sexton?
He looks really big. I find it funny that he talks about how PEDs won't help. It's always strange to me when somebody says that, because that's usually the guy who uses PEDs is the guy who says that. I don't give a shit. I'm on record saying I don't give a shit. But right now, since I'm recovering from COVID, the Steel City Men's Clinic has me on a cocktail of PEDs, essentially, but they're being used for what they're supposed to be used for, not performance enhancing. And I will say, there's no doubt in my mind they would absolutely help. And I'll go back to the argument I used with Alden Baker. He said, well, it won't help. I said, well, why do you even train your guys then if it won't help? If you can increase 3 to 6% on top of an already fit athlete, that's the separation between first and 10th, especially right now.
This makes too much sense. It does.
It does. So, But no, Sexton's going to be tough, and he could easily get in there, shake it up, win some races. God, but there's 9 guys I have that could win races this year. It's scary.
It's super, super stacked. For me, Sexton, I think he has the speed to win, but I think when you get in the middle of, Barsha, AC, all these guys coming up, even Dylan in there, I think he's going to make a big mistake. I think we're going to see a lot of guys crash. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot of crashing going on. And like always, at the end of the season, there's going to be 3 or 4 guys that have established themselves. And I think Sexton might be injured.
Ooh,
Okay.
that's tough. That's a bad hex there, Johnny.
No, I'm not trying to just. I think he's going to push really hard, and he's going to miss a race or two. Either that, or
history
somebody
shows that. Yeah.
Either that, or somebody's going to get COVID, especially one of the top guys, and then they're going to. It's going to ruin the whole season for him because they're not going to make any points. But who's your third? Oh no, Rob wants to say something about that.
You just mentioned something. Who's going to be testing the COVID? That's my question. Because we have tons of situations where we get into the semantic game that we're testing for PEDs. Then we get into the semantics games. Did we test? Yes, we tested. Did we have the tests? Did we get the samples evaluated? That was never articulated. It's never any of our business. But they can say they tested. Now we have MX Sports saying in the Outdoor Nationals that they're now going to be judge and jury of testing and the administration of penalties. But what seems to get lost in the middle is you have the test. If a test comes back positive, let's say the samples are actually evaluated, is a promoter going to take 1, 2, or 3 of the top guys that fail a test and actually punish them by taking them out when they're the ones that are filling this selling tickets, filling the stadiums, and filling the sides of the track? That's another subject for another day. But what about this COVID test? We saw some writings this past week that, hey, COVID is probably going to disrupt the results of the Supercross series. That's an interesting comment. Who's going to be testing? Who's going to say, oh yes, Johnny Hopper, you tested positive, you got to go home? We saw Marv this year. He tested positive, but I don't know when we get into, like you say, Johnny, we've got a points race going on and your points leader, top 3 guy, we're in a 2-point battle. One of the guys tests positive. Is it actually going to be, you need to go home?
All right,
that is going to be very interesting.
Coach, I would bet my truck that 1 or 2 guys raced with COVID last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the conspiracy theorist that I am, if I'm a team manager or something, if I knew that and I knew somebody was trying to hide it, you would try to get them almost disqualified, just not disqualified, but have them go through the rules, exposed. Mm-hmm. So, because that kind of happened in the Outdoor Nationals, the whole Marv kind of thing. And, the KTM team, it seemed like something was going on and nobody really wanted to talk about it. And then it's interesting that Marv is on Supercross only. But anyway, we could talk all sorts more about conspiracy theories.
But your point's well taken, though, Johnny. I mean, if we can get some clarity on how the COVID tests are going to be administered and implemented, that would set the tone to what you were saying, that we may see the influence of COVID. I don't know if you run the statistical odds of everything, when a team does, it is such a tight-knit community. If one of those, when I say those, truck driver, mechanic, team manager, rider, all the above, what do? Do you just completely dismiss that entire team? Of course not.
You're probably supposed to by the CDC guidelines, as far as just everyone.
Their guidelines are as bad as MX Sports guidelines. Oh boy.
Yeah, I wiped my ass with my COVID test, and I have COVID. No, okay, sorry.
And we're getting enough statistics now that you're getting false positives. You're getting those kinds of things as well.
Yeah.
And I'm still interested to see who's going to be administering the test, and when the results come back, what's that communication channel look like? And ultimately the decision, you get to race or not race. So I didn't mean to create a bunny trail there, but when you mentioned the COVID, I think there's been a couple innuendos that have been placed out there, it's definitely going to change it up. Almost like there's a little projecting of what may happen in the future. I just thought it was pretty interesting text.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a premonition type
That's
scenario.
the word I was looking for. Thank you.
So do I go with my third?
Well, I wanted to say one last thing. It's just we're talking about the politics of racing. Like all the team managers and everybody, they're going to expose or try to, everyone wants to think that there's no politics going on in racing, but that's kind of some of the people on the team, they get paid to be like, hey, that guy's cheating. Hey, we got to just go tear that guy down. Hey, that guy's doing illegal fuel, blah, 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 whatever. So, Chris,
Ronnie's on PEDs.
Yeah. What's your third, dude? What's your third?
Okay. It was brutal to get the third place guy. I mean, I looked at Barsha, Muskin, Anderson, Cincerillo, Roxon. Look at all these guys. But I went with Dylan Ferrandis. Ooh. He's the reigning outdoor champ. I believe he's good at Supercross, and he can get up there. I think he's going to win races and contend for this title. I don't know if he has what it takes in the end to compete with my 1 and 2, but he's gonna make it interesting. And having Tomac on that team so he's going to know right where he is going into the season. There's no guessing. He's going to be right with the top guy. I'm going to go with Dylan Ferrandis.
I disagree entirely, but that's okay. We will see what happens.
You hate Yamaha so bad that you would.
No, dude. My brother-in-law, I actually convinced him to go buy a Yamaha, and he loves that bike.
Is that do you not like him? Were you trying to make fun of him?
No, not at all. No. I do wish that like their factory edition or so-called Monster Energy edition. I'm like, come on, guys, can we at least build a bike that has like strong wheels on it? Like come with these soft ass rims, and I mean at least like, and then a full exhaust. I think all these factory edition things, they should just have one big step above to where it's everything on it is kind of race ready. Like just go have a privateer talk about what they would do to a bike. And then that should be the factory edition. Just boom, boom, boom. Even if it's $15,000, just do that. People would buy it. Race ready. Nee. I'm digressing.
It's so good off the showroom. You can't make it better, Johnny. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you can. You could like.
I'm kidding.
It sounds like obviously. A weed whacker.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Does. It totally sounds like a weed whacker. So my third is going to be Ken Roxon. It's probably a surprise for everybody. I think he's going to go out the whole season. I'm conflicted on whether or not he's going to be able to still be 100% come the later rounds, but I think he's old enough and mature enough to where he's not going to put himself on the ground. And so a lot of people are going to shuffle in there. I think he will fight for wins, but I think there's so many good people right now that he's just going to be that second to fifth place guy, maybe even inside the top 10, but just collectively overall, I think he's going to get third. I mean, I really, really wanted him to win, but looking at some of the people that are racing this year, because this is an amazing year, I have to put him in this third, unfortunately, but I still think he's the top Honda guy over there.
But Johnny, look at his history. The last couple of years, he's had the series lead, looked like he was going to win last year. He always has the same issue, and I don't see that getting better with age.
Well, and then
that's why he's not winning.
Well, and then add another dynamic to that. How many years has he been in the 450, or excuse me, on the Honda in the 450 class? Is this year 3 or is this year 4 we're going into? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Let's see. Dungey won 17 was his first year.
Okay. So think about the amount of pressure that's on him. It's this year, it's do or die. There's still
we said that last year though, too.
I was going to say, I thought we said that last year, and this year is like bonus do or die.
Well, but I think the difference is in his defense, he came out, won the first 3-4 rounds, had he had a solid points lead, looked like he was going to be able to pull the car into the garage this year, and then little chink, and then it just cascaded the wrong direction. So yeah, he proved a lot of the naysayers, including myself, wrong last year, even including going and racing outdoors. I didn't think we'd see it, but I think the pressure is mounted to a level now, and you've got Sexton that wants to prove that he should be the top guy there. He's been very vocal, being disappointed that he didn't feel as if he got enough attention last year, whether that's in research and development or whatever it may be. But I agree with Johnny on that. I think Roxon's consistency on starts, and he knows how to manage a series. I don't think it's unrealistic to put him in the top 3. I don't have him in the top 3, by the way.
Just a side note: is Cooper Webb still going to own him?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's the Dungy, and then God, why am I? He's just getting in his head. He's just getting in his head. Lawrence, exactly. I can't believe.
But he's done it for a whole
spaced that.
career, not necessarily one season. Lawrence got away with it one season. Dungy got it together. He has owned Roczen ever since I remember. It's ugly.
Yeah, it's
really
definitely been a feud.
I would call it a feud, a rivalry, but it's so one-sided. It's just a beatdown.
Yeah, but you always have to have faith in the little guy. You know, it's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think Kenny is that he's respectable. I mean, Webb is a respectable dude too, but I don't necessarily think that Webb would be like the best guy to have a beer with. Where Kenny seems like he'd be a good guy to go do that with. Unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of guys that are over 30 that we are watching the end of their careers, because if they don't own up, you're talking these guys that have been the prodigies of the whole motorsport in motocross and supercross pretty much their entire careers. And if they're not finishing and not winning, they're like, why should I even be putting my body and risking all this stuff? What's the point? So I think there's a lot of guys like Tomac, Marvin, Kenny. There's a lot of guys that are like, we want to talk about like shit or get off the pot. I think there's a lot of guys, I've said that 8 times, that could be retiring next year or the year after at, I think, the latest. But
hey Johnny, on that thread of thought, there's one little extra thing to think about. And that last statement that you just made is the big key. You look at the age of the guys and look who's going to be eligible next year for a 450 ride. Colt Nichols, Cooper, Craig, Martin, and Faulkner. They have to come out of the 250 class this year. So not only do you have that pressure within a team dynamic, team color, you've got 5 guys that want it really, really bad. And I think it's interesting that you bring up the fact that Sexton may put himself on the ground a lot, trying to over push. He was on Jace's show saying that he's learned to tame it down a little bit, but to try to be that top dog on the team, on HRC, knowing that there's 5 guys coming in. I'm not saying that you're going to have one of those 5 guys that's just going to come in and walk over Roczen, but we know that Jeremy Martin was on a fast track to get where Sexton's at right now. And to your point, 31, 32 years old, back end, a huge onslaught of deep talent getting ready to come in. It's going to put a lot of pressure on that whole 450 musical chairs. I agree.
I would disagree with that, Coach. I think all 5 of those guys I would have Roczen over any of those dudes. I don't think those.
I'm with Cooksey. I'm with Cooksey on that. I think it's happening, but we're not quite there yet. I would give Kenny another year to try to perform above all those guys. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that don't have a job, is really what I think, which is so sad.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's happening. Sorry.
No,
Cooksey,
unless Jet goes Supercross and outdoors again and goes 450, I stay with Roczen if he wants to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I honestly, I agree. But I think the next year there's so much more other people coming up to where you're like, okay, now you're 32, 33, like,
But think about this though. I don't know how much Roczen's made. What's his base salary? 2.5 million. He's been there for 3 to 4 years. So let's just round that up to $10 million and no championship. That's where I think Honda's looking at it going, we've tried. I agree with you, Chris. Talent wise, Roczen is there, but it's at what point do you finally just cut your losses and go, okay, we move Sexton up. We bring Jet in as the new kid. We have Sexton with a couple of years maturity. That's one reason why I'm saying these 250 guys, because you got to remember, a lot of these guys, their contracts are up this year. Ferrandis's will be up. Tomac's got a 1-year deal with an option for renewal. So that changes the dynamics. Do people go sideways? Do they just step out? There's a lot going on in the 450 class this year, pressure-wise. Not any more than usual, I guess.
Johnny, go ahead.
I just
I was digressing. I had a point and I forgot what I was going to say.
All right, well let's just move on to number 2, Rob. What is your number 2 for Supercross 2022.
This is the fight in the dog. I'm going with Mr. Cooper Webb for number 2.
Wow.
Mr. Cooper Webb for number 2. We've said it every time we've been on together. Cooper knows how to manage a long season. I think in his amateur days racing against AC, learning how to handle defeat, he's gone out of his way, very, very similar to what Villapoto did to learn how to eventually beat Alessi. I think there's a sense of maturity with Webb. Obviously, he's got the championships that backs it up on 250s, now on 450s. How do you vote against him? And yes, I don't have him as the number 1 guy, and I'll explain why here in a second. But yeah, I have Webb second. I think he's going to obviously be very, very difficult to beat. He's always got that chip on his shoulder, and he's been very vocal that he'll never lose that chip on his shoulder. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see.
So you don't think he'll lose that, even leaving, the Baker factory, or is leaving the Baker factory adding to that chip?
Leaving the Baker's factory is going to make Cooper stronger than ever because he's going to be way fresher than he's ever been. I think you're going to see an elevation of Cooper Webb, but I also think there's somebody else that's going to elevate above what Cooper's able to do this year. But I think Cooper's going to be better this year now that he's away from Alden. And it's interesting that Marv is now under Villeman. He's gone away from the Baker's factory. You have Webb that's gone over working with Berner. And now I just think you're going to see a complete revitalized Cooper, which is going to be hard to beat. But I think there's one guy that's going to be capable of doing it.
Well, and I think the guy you're probably talking about is the guy that I have at number 2, Eli Tomac, because he's riding the Weed Whacker. It's such a good bike. And Dylan has proved that bike works. He's going into a program where they're catering to him. He was kind of almost burnt out of Kawasaki. And I think they were tired of hearing him make excuses and complaints about
Was he burnt out of Kawasaki, or is he burnt out of the sport?
Kawasaki. Because he took less money. If you're burned out on the sport, just leave. He's got money. Money's not a motivating factor, in my opinion, for Tomac.
Yeah.
So what a motivated Eli is scary. Right now, he really wants to show Kawasaki and everybody he's still got it. So that's why he's going to be right there and easily could win this thing. I have him at number 2, but if he goes number 1, like if I was doing betting odds, I would go like plus 300, plus 310. It's that close for first and second. And a lot of it's going to come down to chance and maybe COVID. Who knows?
Yeah, you definitely need a little bit of luck. So I am with Coach on this one. I think Cooper, I really would like to see him win because
Johnny, you just gave me a whole speech about the dog and the fight, and you're going to put Cooper second? Are you kidding me?
Yes. I'm going to put Cooper second. I'm going to put maybe there's a little bit of, irony or whatever in there.
Hypocrisy?
Potentially. Chris, it's lucky that I've been working out, man. It's luckily we're not sitting right next to each other.
Whip my ass right now. If it goes past 30 seconds, I can't breathe, so we're good.
I know I'm faster than you, so I just have to run away and
yeah, that's fair.
So I don't think he's going to win many races because I think he's definitely not going to be the fastest guy, but I think his racecraft is going to show forth, and he's going to do what he does best, is kind of get in people's head and then be opportunistic when shit happens, whether it's somebody's down with COVID or somebody gets injured. And I think at the end of the deal, the points, he's gonna be there. And personally, he wouldn't have won 2 years ago if he didn't have that little wheel tap incident and didn't make any points that weekend either. So this is kind of a shitty quote, but you never contend with a man that has nothing to lose. And him being the championship, you feel like he's got everything to lose. But I think Cooper is almost feeling as if he's got nothing to lose because he's already had everything. So if it's gone, it's gone. He's been second place before. He's out to be the best. And this was a tough one for me because I really, really wanted to put him at number 1, just because, like I said, there's so many good people there, but it's not just about how fast you are and what you can do on the bike. It's about all the little things throughout the whole season. And I think he's got the best head, however you want to interpret that, but that's what I'm going with.
Johnny, you said something in there that caught my attention. You said he's not going to be the fastest guy. He's
No.
always, when the track breaks down and you have to think out there, he's always the fastest at the end of the night. Yeah, the first of the night when it's all good, he's not the guy usually. But when it breaks down, he's always got speed. If you check the lap times, a lot of the end of those Supercrosses, he's the fastest guy.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going more in the definition of just hero lap type speed.
Times qualifying when it's good.
Yeah, like first 2 laps,
Okay.
boom. You know, you've got guys like I think Sexton, AC, and I think Dylan are going to be those 3 guys that have got the sheer raw speed. But the question is, can they last the whole 20 laps? And that's why I have them as second, is because Webb, just like what you said, you know, just to confirm what I'm thinking, is he's going to be there at the end, you know. But if you don't have that 2-3 second speed right at the burst of it, because these are long main events, sometimes 25 minutes, you know, it's going to be hard to catch up. So even if you are the fastest guy at the end, well, once the rabbit gets away, the tortoise will catch up eventually.
Johnny,
It
you watched the last couple seasons, right?
Yeah.
When Roxon was the rabbit and he'd always get caught by the tortoise, which you're calling Cooper.
I know,
the
but
tortoise?
that I'm trying to just give some analogies here, you know, and you're making me feel like an idiot, which potentially I can be sometimes. Dude, I don't think he's there right at the beginning. Webb will win the series if he can hang the first 5 laps. If he can hang the first 5-ish laps with everybody out front, then I definitely think that he will win the series. I still have him as second because I don't think that's going to happen, but that's just my 2 cents.
For Eli to beat him, he's going to have to get starts, because you know Webb's getting starts. So how is he going to fall that far behind when he's getting the starts every week?
I like how you're going about this, you know, as devil's advocate here. I have him as second, okay? You know, I just have him as second. We'll see.
I know. I'm acting like you got him at 9th or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I got him at second as well. I'm with you, Jay.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I think he will get lucky and win a couple races, but that's what he does every year. Yes, Chris, he gets lucky. He makes things happen. He takes advantage of.
Ask Ken Roxon if that's luck.
What I'm saying is, with luck, dude, is he's opportunistic. When he sees an opening, he takes it. It's lucky that there's an opportunity to be had, whether it's put somebody over the tough blocks or run way on the inside of him. He takes that stuff. He makes it happen.
He's lucky he makes his own opportunities. What are you trying to say here, Johnny?
I'm saying in order to win races this year, you're going to have the speed. You're going to have to be lucky. And yeah, truthfully, I do think he's been lucky some of the times, you know, that I think any almost champion sometimes, fuck, man.
No, I agree. I agree with that. You have to have luck to win this series. And I think I even said that, like, you have to have luck.
Yeah. Yeah. So it almost is making it sound like you have him as number 1 is how you're fighting. Is you're
possibly.
Let's just move on. And then maybe I will try to give you shit about your number 1 pick. Okay. Well, we're just jumping ahead real quick. Cooksey, who's your number 1?
Well, I'm going to go with Malcolm Stewart. No, I'm just kidding. Cooper Webb, of course.
See, exactly.
Yeah, Cooper Webb, because he's tough.
Because he's not lucky. He's not tough. He's going to be the fastest guy there. Like,
hold on.
Nobody else should race. He's just going to win, kick everyone's ass, get everyone in his head. Like, you know, why bother, right?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, Rob. Go, Chris.
He's tough as nails. He's proven that the moment's not too big for him. When the moment gets bigger, he does better. If the race doesn't mean anything, he rides around in 5th. If it's something where he's going to win the championship, you know you're going to get your A game with Cooper Webb. That's it. And look, he's literally destroyed Ken Roxon's psyche. Ken is the most talented, beautiful rider on a dirt bike out there. When he takes off those first 5 laps, if that's all you watched, you'd think for sure he won almost every race last year. But then if you flip it on the last 5, you'd be like, wow, that dude in second is such a badass. Like you said, fortunately, these races are almost 25 minutes. It's going to give him time to be consistent, watch how the track breaks down, figure stuff out. I haven't seen a rider. And another thing with his starts, the thing that Cooper Webb does that absolutely blows me away, he's the only rider that looks like he has eyes in the back of his head. There'll be a section where they'll go 2-1 or do some weird rhythm that he wasn't doing. They do it behind him. And the next lap, like, he does it. I don't know how he senses what they did, but he does. Have you noticed that at all?
Yeah, no, he definitely just goes for it, and he lives in the moment, and he make stuff happen. That's where I go with that whole thing is like what you're talking about is him making the quad or doing the little triple section in all the real rough stuff that nobody does. Typically, most guys would take the whole time qualifying practice in order to jump something like that. And he just clicks it off. And that's where I'm going with that quote is you never contend with a man that has nothing to lose. Sometimes when he rides out there, he rides as if he's got nothing to lose. And that's why it's so exciting, but that might catch up to him. And your defense on Kenny, I think Kenny's got almost better people around him than Webb does. I think the whole KTM infrastructure, they were the team to beat. They were definitely the team to beat. I think it's transferred more of the Yamaha side of where their whole program is. And I think truthfully, I think Kenny's got some better people on his side that he's probably implemented as far as maybe somebody like Coach Rob, who's not only training as far as physical, but he's almost like a mentor type deal. I don't think we're going to see as much of Kenny and Webb. There's so many riders this year. I think it's going to be interesting if we find them on the track together in multiple moments rather than one or two, because there's so many good guys in here.
I'll bet you we see it quite a bit. For whatever reason, they're magnets. That's the way either they manifest it, they think about it, whatever they do, they always wind up together. Even if they're in fifth and sixth, they're going to find each other on the track.
That's good for the sport. I like drama. That's good for the sport. We need more drama. So,
well, and there's the whole backstory to it with,
there's been a lot of stuff happening.
Webb marrying Roxon's ex-girlfriend, and then Roxon's wife after Daytona or Atlanta yelling at Webb. Like there's a lot to go with that story that nobody shares. So sorry, I don't want to take all your time, Coach.
No, it's all good.
He's been patient. Yeah.
No, I think the listeners need to know about those backstories, because if you go back, obviously we know the end result of Roxon getting his arm torn up, and we know all of what he's been through. I think the listeners deserve to know the back without, we're muddling into someone's personal business. Well, I thought Instagram was a public environment for everybody to go and look. All we're trying to do is create clarity as to why would there be such an immediate retaliation when it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal on the opening lap, 2 turns in. Why would you go in so bonsai? Well, there's history behind it. Whether you want to call it catty, immature, whatever you want to declare it, doesn't matter. There's a story behind it, and the listeners deserve to know what that story is. The hard part about it is here we sit 3 years later, Ken Roczen may have been the best that never was, with the exception with the RCH that 1 year. It's the only title that he got. Does that mean that's all he's capable of? No. He spent a lot of time in rehab with that arm, and obviously that gnarly wreck where he ripped his feet off the pegs and yard darted himself. That, there's a lot. He's overcome a tremendous amount. Then you look at, was it Lyme disease? Was it Epstein-Barr? Was it all these fatigue-related issues? Then seem to get that worked out, and then get to the second half of the season, start hearing that he's tired again. And again, with a sport that never is transparent on what's going on. Again, I don't need to know the intimate details, but as we've all said, there's not a podcast out there that hasn't talked about it. If you look at Formula One and you look at all these other sports, they don't hide the information. For whatever reason, they see it differently than we do. So we could do a whole show on just the psyche of telling the truth.
Because they make more money at it. Yeah.
Good point.
By sharing it.
Yep. Exactly.
And time is just so finite, especially in the sport, because the sport seems like your career is wrapped up into maybe 5-10 years. So you have a very small amount of time to make something happen. And in a switch, it's kind of over with, whether it's a catastrophic injury or something, because I'm totally with you. If he didn't have that injury, he was pretty much owning everybody. And we could have seen a Ricky Carmichael, Jeremy McGrath type run on Supercross, where when you just build up in your head that you're the man, that you pretty much stay the man. Same thing that happened to Stewart. As soon as Stewart was like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to take some time off. Well, then you got a guy like Dungey show up that's like, hey, you're not the man anymore because I don't even know who the hell you are. And it almost makes you human again. And we've seen Roczen become human. Did you say who your first was yet, Rob, or no?
Not yet. Nope. Well,
okay,
and to your thread of thought
that
right there, talking about the time warp, if you follow me on Instagram, I posted the neck brace that AC gave me at Loretta's, right? And that was a neck brace that he wore when he was racing against Cooper Webb. That's over 15 years ago. And yet we remember seeing Deegan rip on an 85 3 years ago with Daxton Bennett, Logan Best, Casey Cochran. And now look at him. He's on a 250 program training at the goat farm. Time warp. It happens so fast. Like you said, it before we know it, Roxon's out and the new heir apparent is in. It never slows down. If anything, it seems like it only gets faster. And like it's been a long 3 years for Ken Roxon, but I don't know that we'll ever see what he was truly capable of because of what he's been through.
And little digression, that's why, Chris, I've been so much on, hey, the PEDs kind of need to be exposed, because when you have such a small time like that, people will make kind of fucked up decisions because, you either make it now or later on you wish coulda, woulda, shoulda type shit, because there's not time to sit here and be like, oh, I'm going to try this and come back, or I'm going to try this. It's just boom. How do you accelerate everything? And what do PEDs do? They accelerate everything. You still put in the work. Your body can just take so much more torture and recover that much faster that you're almost stuck in a little bit of a time warp just right there. So anyway, Rob, who is your number one? Because it's probably not going to piss me off like Cooksey can with.
Yeah,
we're fighting over 1 and 2 here.
That's okay. My number one guy is going to be Ferrandis in the 450 class this year.
Wow.
I look at Ferrandis. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it's because of DV, right?
Well, I think it's DV. I think it's a bike that he's familiar with. If you look at the top 3 guys, Ferrandis is the one who has the least amount of changes. Now I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here because I said with Webb going to Burner, leaving Baker's factory, etc. I think that's going to help Webb because of the fatigue factor. I see a lot of the mistakes that these riders are making, and doing this for 38 years, when you see fundamental mistakes, usually that's excessive amounts of fatigue, caloric restriction, unstable blood sugar levels. The timing is off just ever so slightly. And at this elite level, yes, sometimes the finite line is the difference between success and failure. The injury rate, if you look at the accidents, some of them just don't justify the magnitude of the broken bones. So you've got caloric restriction, brittle bones, low blood sugar. Everything just seems to be going the wrong direction. That's why I think Webb's going to look better this year. Ferrandis is the only one who's retained the same trainer, DV, on the same bike. Yes, they moved from California to the goat farm. That's not a huge deal, big difference there. Like you were saying earlier about Roxon having such a solid team around him. Ferrandis has the most consistent team for the last 2 to 3 years. And if you look at the progression, 250 champion goes into 450 class, has shown his program is solid all the way around. And for that reason is the only reason why I have him as number one. Webb has a lot of changes going on. Sexton has a lot of changes. Plessinger has a lot of changes. Macklem's got a lot of changes. AC, I don't know that he's 100% healthy. Jason Anderson has a lot of changes. Ferrandis is the only one that has the most consistent program moving into 22.
Wow. Well, Rob, I'm going to just say great minds think alike, because Cooksey, I'm picking Dylan for number 1 too.
Hold on. Where did you guys have Tomac? Not in the top 3?
I do not have Tomac in the top 3.
Nope, I don't either.
You guys are crazy.
No,
Yeah,
no.
I would agree.
We will see.
Yeah.
We will see.
Then
We
again,
will
1 through,
see.
like I said, I got 9 guys can win races, so it
Yeah,
can go
Absolutely.
anywhere.
Absolutely.
I never
But
said
Johnny-
Tomac wasn't going to win races. I think he's going to win races. I do think he's going to win races.
Are you
I just think it's
infatuated
going to be.
with Yamahas, Johnny? Because you're just turning on me. You got your was your cousin to buy one, and now you're picking like Ferrandis. Like, are you trying to
Dude,
make up for all the shit you talk?
I'm a trend follower, and when the trend is just hauling fucking ass, you just hop on board. They mix ass. They okay. Probably
Mix
won't say any
gas.
more.
Mix
than
ass? Elaborate.
No,
It's a good
I'm
bumper
mixing
sticker.
gas. I said gas. It
I
might
thought you
have
said
sounded
mixing
like
ass.
You did, but that's
Mix
okay. We'll
Okay.
move on.
board. They mix ass. They.
It's on
I
recording.
could have swore I said gas.
Yeah,
did,
that'll,
but
that'll be
that's
my
okay.
clip, Johnny.
Board. They mix ass. They
Mixing ass.
Mixing ass and drinking gas. Nobody rides for free.
That's pretty much what happened. So
Ask grass a cash.
the Frenchman, he's on a roll. He's older, so therefore he's mature. So he's not going to make as silly mistakes as I think AC and Sexton are. He's on the best team, and his ego is pumping. He's coming off of he won in Supercross before. Then he went to outdoors, kicked ass in outdoors, proved that he can beat all these guys. He's moving in, going, hey, I'm going to continue to beat these guys. And I don't know what's happening at the practice track, but I'm assuming that Dylan is probably the faster of the two riders between him and Tomac over there.
Well, take it a step further as well, Johnny. We've heard so much about why Tomac went over to Star Yamaha. Suspension, right? The number one guy went over there. So if that additional information gets funneled through the team, which I think it is, I don't think that's information that's only privy to Tomac. You got that additional factor plus DV plus familiarity with the bike, on and on and on it goes. And stealing a line from Jeff Emig, I'd much rather take momentum than a points lead. And I think Ferrandis has that momentum coming in 22.
Exactly. And he has been the top guy on Yamaha. So you're not going to have a guy like Tomac just come in and you're going to be like, okay, here's the captain cap, Tomac, here you go. Everyone's going to give you all this stuff. No, he's going to be like, hey, dude, I'm just new to the 450 class. You've had your shot. You've won championships. I'm more hungry than you. I'm going to continue hogging all the resources, and everyone unconsciously is going to be thinking like, hey, Dylan's our best shot to win. That's all just adding up to that momentum thing. I think the first couple rounds of Supercross are going to be so pivotal because there's so many people on teams that are fighting over, hey, where are we putting our resources? Where is everybody really going to say this is our number one guy? And for that reason, I think Dylan is going to deliver. He's new to the 450 class. He's got, even though his age is a little, how old is he? He's 28,
29, I believe.
Yeah. So there's a different turning of the guard, I would say, to where because you had Stewart, you had Dungey, you had Carmichael, they all retired at 25, 26. Well, now all the real fast guys are damn near over 30, but he's on the younger side of all those guys with Brayton, Marv, Tomac, Kenny, everybody. And I just think that we're going to see a dude I think he's going to win the most races. I think his worst races are still going to be fifth. I'm just going Dylan all the way. Full episode will be available on the channel in the next couple days. And if you want to hear the full audio, head over to Cooksey and the Coach, where you get your favorite podcasts.